Hi there, welcome to Test Roll. I'm Martin.
I'm Lars.
We're here to show you our first cameras. They're not probably the thing that you're going to want to run right out and buy for their optical qualities. But everybody has had their first moment in whatever pursuit they're in. And in this case, with pictures, I have the first camera that I shot pictures with from about 1967. So let me show you what that looked like. This is a Kodak Holiday Flash Brownie. It's made out of bakelite. The lens is plastic. It's called a Dacon lens.
It's sort of like the radish.
I don't know. All I know is that there's no way to get behind this lens to clean it without drilling out the rivets that are holding it together. So this is not really meant for you to service. But it takes a 127 film. It's a little roll film size. This actually was a camera that came out in the 1950s that belonged to my siblings. I have 3 older siblings. The youngest of which is 10 years older than I am, and they all had one of these. And I came along later, and I wanted to take pictures like everybody else. And so one of them was no longer interested, and I ended up with their camera. And I don't know if it was Ross, Russell, or Dina, but I have their camera here. So this is my first camera. You want to haul yours out there?
I'm a little embarrassed because yours is kind of nice looking.
Oh, well, you know.
Mine's a Kodak X-15 Instamatic, and it's cheap. It's plastic. It's has its little. This is a used one, but it has its little, flash cube. There
we go.
It's not the most deluxe camera you'll find, but it does take a picture, and it takes 126 film, which
126.
It's
you have
more
one
or less,
right there.
Yeah. Here is a box of new old stock. Hopefully it hasn't been used yet. It's a cartridge loading thing, so it's like you have this plastic cartridge and you just drop it into there and.
Well, you're talking deluxe, Lars, because this one is a roll film.
Yeah.
It has takes a little spools.
Yeah.
It's bigger than 35 millimeter. And they're kind of interesting, and you can barely get film for it now.
Yeah, Freestyle actually still sells some.
It's
re-spooled, I assume.
Yeah, it's 46 millimeters, and I guess they use that in some commercial portrait cameras back in the day, and the consumer stuff was just like roll film with paper backing, and that's sort of like that. But it's spooled in the.
Right, the cartridge has a paper backing.
The film has a paper backing in the cartridge, so you can see the numbers of the exposures as you look past it.
Yeah, it's got a little window in the back here. And what I really remember was going down to the drugstore, and it's like, half a mile away, and my brother and I would walk down to the drugstore and with our, change in hand and pick up a roll of film that we had developed, and the guy behind the counter is going through and okay, bunch. It's like, okay, here it is. And then I immediately have to start looking through the photographs and the little prints that you get made, because it's like, did they come out? Oh boy, what's on this? And that is actually my strongest memory. Apart from the time that we did this little sequence where my brother and I built a little, plastic model rocket ship. And then we did this whole sequence of the rocket trying to launch and then exploding on the launch pad and burning up and just all this black smoke and melted plastic. It was disgusting.
You were dark early on. Your experience with the expectation of going to the getting your photos it rings true to me. They had a deal back when I was a kid. and this was at Thrifty Drugstore, which they still have wonderful ice cream, even though they're now, what, Rite Aid?
I guess.
Yeah, anyway. But Thrifty Drugstore, over here, they would give you a roll of film with your processing. So, like, you get your film developed, printed, then they would give you a free roll of film. Now, was it good film? No. I remember getting this stuff developed, and there was like these weird things on there, and it was like it had been in storage for so long, the paper had adhered to the back of the film, and it was.
I've had an experience like
well,
that.
right, yeah. I think it could possibly even have been World War II surplus. I mean, I kid you not. You know how on some roll films, and you probably won't even have any idea what I'm talking about, but printed on the back when you're trying to wind to the next exposure, on Kodak films they had an arrow pointing you to the next exposure. Just keep winding, okay, until you see the number come up. In this one, they had these very, very ancient-looking hands, like pointing this way. Just like on Yellow Submarine, you had the hand. It was hilarious. I guess by the time I came along, this is about 1967, this was on its way out. This was the future. This was put a cartridge in there, and you're done. You don't have to do anything more. You wind it a couple times to the first click. There you have your first exposure. With this, you have to wind it carefully and don't overshoot it. And you have to remember to wind after every exposure. This had like a fail-safe, so you wouldn't get another exposure until you wound it again. This camera was made to be stupid-proof,
and
this isn't.
That was great because as a preteen or just in my early teens, I was a stupid kid, and I knew nothing. I did not understand the concept of an f-stop or a shutter speed or film speed. That didn't matter. All I wanted to do was get an image on film, and it's like I wasn't going to put up with all that thinky work.
Why stop at one image when you could have two on the same exposure, or maybe three? Yeah. Well, I mean, you already saw, if you happen to see our thing on the autographic Brownie or the autographic camera, then you know that we're not much better now, but we're going to try to do a little bit better this time. We're going to take these out. We're going to shoot with these with whatever we can find. The advantage today is you can actually find a few brand new film sources for 127, believe it or not. They're out there. But with that camera, Kodak stopped making those cartridges in 1999, or well, actually that piece of film that you had expires in 1999. We're going to try with this expired 1999 film.
The fact that it lasted that long kind of shocks me.
But we're also going to show you what it's like to shoot with reloaded. We had a cassette that we reloaded with regular 35 millimeter. It'll be a little different looking, and we'll lower our expectations of what it ends up looking like, but you might be pleasantly surprised. Anyway, we're going to go out, walk around, take some pictures, and we'll come back and report back to you, see if we wanted to pull our heads off or not.
Well, it just depends on how low we lower our expectations.
Keep them low.
So I've got my Holiday Flash Brownie, and I'm going to try and load this thing. So the first thing to do here, so we're going to take the empty spool and put it over here. And I've got this lovely film that came all the way from China, and if you look here, you can see this is the expiration date here, 2024, May 2024, and then the batch number 4101. I just read that at least somebody was having problems with them having put loaded the paper backing on backwards. I got to give it to the Shanghai people. Nobody else makes this this size. This almost looks like a wrapper from like a candy bar. But okay. I gotcha. So there is film end. That's oh, that's not a good sign. This end. So we'll do that. Well, let's go shoot a picture. Well, we're back, and now we've got some pictures to look at, and first of all, I'd like to apologize for how long it took me to load my camera. I don't know what happened, but I've lost the touch, obviously. All right, here we go. So there's a good old Glendale train station. This negative really got kind of badly scuffed.
Yeah, it's
yeah, it looks a bit like a daguerreotype, but you can totally see how we got it's focused in the center.
Yeah.
But it fades off quite a bit toward the edges.
Yeah, you look at that, gets very smeary there and there.
Let's have a look at this next one here, and oh, okay, this is an up and down. Yeah, same kind of thing. We've got some weird black dots here, which I suspect may have had something to do with the stand development. I use stand development on this.
I'm not understanding what's happening with those dots.
Air bells?
Could have been air bells, I suppose. Yeah.
But they're only throughout the roll. They're on that side. So I can only think that it was right up against the reel, and it's trapped air. Next one, and more Glendale, and yeah.
Yeah, this part looks relatively sharp. The whole entry area
on
is
the
a bit
right
soft.
side.
Do you know if this is a meniscus lens in this brownie?
I suspect. I mean, I don't know.
They tend to be reasonably sharp in the center, and then sharpness falls off drastically on the edges.
Yeah, it sure looks like it here.
And then this curvature.
Oh, okay. So one thing I that did get me thinking, though, we often talk about, is the film plane flat, if there's focus problems. Well, on this particular one, you notice the film plane
Holy cow.
is curved.
I mean, you said it was curved earlier, but I did not realize it was that curved.
That is pretty curved. So
that okay, yeah,
I'm assuming that was for undoing distortion from a wide lens or something.
Well, I mean,
to a degree.
If it's a meniscus lens, then I could see it as a way of keeping focus on the edges. I mean, obviously it doesn't keep it very well, but it's probably better than had this been flat, because basically a meniscus lens is just it's concave on one side, convex on the other, and it's the simplest darn lens you can possibly have, and there's no correction for anything. I mean, the center is sharp, and that's it.
And Grand Central Air Terminal. There we are.
A lot more cars than I remember when we were out shooting it.
Yeah, because Yeah, because I had a little thing. I thought, well, I have one roll and it's a 2-roll tank, but what I didn't take into account there was a spacer at the bottom. And so when I did the stand development, there's this perfect stripe of developed film and and of course completely blank at the top, which in a way was a blessing. I ended up spotting some real issues. This company actually made these kind of approximately sized spools out of plastic, but they're not perfect. On my camera, it jammed after like the first 3 pictures and started to bind up. What I ended up doing is I took the film, which was wound on backwards to begin with, figuring I had very little to lose at this point. I wound the film frontwards onto a genuine Kodak vintage spool, which worked fine in the camera. But that's probably why you see all that scuffing and handling, because I was in my cheapo changing bag there, and I wasn't really doing the finest job putting it on right.
Now many things start to make sense.
Yeah. I snuck back and I reshot stuff.
Yeah, well.
So we can go on to the next. Yeah, there's through the open gate, which was not open when we were there before.
Yeah, because we went on like a Sunday or something.
But you'll notice on the wording on the front of the building, it says Grand Central Air Terminal. The first letter of each word was in a kind of an orange red. It was pretty easy to see in color at the time, but if you look at that picture, you can almost not see the G, C, A, T.
Grand Central Ear.
Yeah, it's... So I don't know if this is like extended red sensitivity.
It's weird because I'd seen these and it's like, I'm having a hard time reading that text.
Yeah, what do we got? Oh, and there's Samantha and Spike and Baby on the back porch. So that's what I got.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, let's see what you got here.
Okay, so shooting with the Instamatic. Here we are at Travel Town.
They've done some really neat things, and finally are protecting the equipment, because for a long time it just sat outside. Anyway, so let's move on here. And yes.
It's interesting because this is in deep shadow, or relatively deep shadow. And yeah, it's dark, you're losing detail, but
it holds up.
It works. I mean,
how far away were you standing when you took that, do you think?
No closer than 10 feet, probably closer to 15 feet maybe.
Okay, but you notice how soft the number 1 on the very front of the boiler is compared to this driver here, this first big drive wheel. Looks to me a lot sharper than this.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And the funny thing about this is I always imagined, and again, folks, it would really help if I bothered to read instructions. I didn't have any, but still, I suspect highly that the recommended distance would be 15 feet away or 20 feet away.
This one might be a little soft. I mean, I was closer on this one, but yeah, it's not exactly sharp.
You're doing exactly what any person would have done with this camera in the day, too.
Right.
Now, that's funny. That looks closer, and yet that looks pretty reasonably focused on these. Well,
it's okay.
Compared to...
Well, maybe it's just nothing is really sharp in the shot.
It could be. And remember, too, we could not get behind the other side of these lenses to on either camera to clean them.
Yeah.
So that could just be gunk back there, partially. And I like the cable car a lot.
Yeah, that's it's a bit of a wreck, but it's a beautiful old wreck.
Yeah. So I got a shot of Jenny and Coleman here, and you'll notice that everything but Jenny and Coleman are actually in focus.
Yeah. That's, the background is nice.
Everything's just beautiful, except them.
There,
So they were probably about 10 feet away. No, they're probably about closer than that.
Maybe
so
8 feet or.
I did the typical tourist thing.
Yeah.
No, this is stuff that you did.
This is stuff
your
I
own
shot
walkabout.
yesterday. Just went out in the morning, and this is the Doris Place School in Frogtown, which, I just happened to turn down the street because I was going to go to the LA River. And it's like, oh, the light on this building is really nice today.
Yeah, that really came out.
Yeah. And
well, I mean, that camera almost functions like a real camera here.
I like this one because I just like framing up that circular thing within the tree and stuff like that.
Well, this was a good experiment, though, with this film that's like, it's merely only, 25 years old?
Oh, that's nothing.
But, I mean, it's like, this actually survived pretty well.
Yeah. I just like the color contrast of the orange bridge and the rather algae-laden river.
That's really pretty, though, the colors.
Yeah, I like the way the highlights are blooming on the turnbuckles. The color stuff actually worked. I mean, the film that was loaded by Kodak and photographed the way, God intended it to be photographed, worked. Now, some other stuff.
Well, I loaded the second one, so I can tell you it wasn't God or Kodak.
And
then let's look at the...
And these did not quite work as well as they might have.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's make these big here.
This is where I started. And
where is this?
This is the St. Anne's Church in Frogtown as well. You had mentioned this idea of, well, you need to give it a couple of winds. And it was like, well, it locks after I wind it, so I guess it's good to go. Well, I didn't really think this through as well as perhaps I might have. And I only after I shot this did I realize, oh, well, if I put my hand over the lens and fired it and then wound it again.
You'll see on the film it's 35 millimeters wide, but each frame has one big perforation.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike 35 millimeter still film that we use today, which was actually nothing more than motion picture film. So this has a little claw in there that engages, and that stops it. With extra perforations, it stops early.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Anyway, let's just take a look at the redone roll here.
Okay, so let's...
And so, it's nice, at least, for instance, here to be able to see recently made black and white pictures.
Mm-hmm.
A little cleaner in that regard. Obviously, the lens is still doing what it does.
It's not the sharpest lens ever, but it's like, it does the job when set up and,
it's easier
properly.
Yeah, it's easier to develop black and white for me, so I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But I also, as a kid, I remember with these, you couldn't find black and white film back in the day as much. It was out there, but it was not anywhere near as popular as the color was.
I'm pretty sure all I ever shot with it was in color.
Kodak really pushed color film.
The funny thing is, the economics of it sort of reversed things so that, at least for a time, color was cheaper.
Yeah, because they were geared up for that production. But, well, that's a heck of a lot better. But anyway, I sure had a lot of fun, facing some of my photographic demons, because basically I was scarred as a child, trying to get pictures with a camera that was never going to give me the pictures that I wanted. Mm-hmm. And yes, there were things that I needed to learn to do better, like don't move the camera around when you're taking the when you're tripping the shutter, squeeze the shutter, try to do it very gently. But at the same time, even if you did everything else right, the pictures I wanted, that camera was never going to deliver them.
As a kid, I was sort of the perfect person for the Instamatic because I didn't know anything about photography. I didn't actually care anything about photography. I just wanted to get pictures. And it's like, I don't think that as a kid it ever even entered my mind that you would care what the image looked like, just so long as you had a basic serviceable image. It's kind of fun to just kind of use a camera and go, yeah, let's see what happens.
Well, to tell you the truth, using the thing now, I actually kind of like some of the looks that we've gotten here today, and I'm actually kind of intrigued in maybe going out and shooting more with it because it looks the way it does.
Yeah.
So anyway, we hope that you would pick up your old camera and look at it anew again, and hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls that we fell right into. And if you do fall into those pitfalls, at least understand that it isn't you, and it's worth giving it another shot and seeing if you can find some things about it that you like too. I'm Martin.
I'm Lars.
We'll be here next time with a different camera on Test Roll.